Morning, everyone, and welcome to this Hangout on Air. This is about the Texas GAFE Technical Collaborative, and just wanted to welcome everyone. My name is Tim Lee. I'm the CTO for Amplified IT, and thanks for joining us. This is going to be recorded and will be able to be played back later on YouTube, so we're going to be sending out the links to everyone. But before we start, what I thought we'd do is we'd start with just introducing the team that we've got on board here. Bill, just over to you.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name's Bill McKenzie. I work for Amplified. I consult with them, and I work for the Upper Grand District School Board here in Ontario. I'm the IT ambassador with a school background. I've been in education for 20 years.
Going over to James.
Hey everyone, James Leonard here from the Google team out of Mountain View. Was in Houston yesterday, and I'm one of the regional program managers for Texas.
Awesome, and over to Jamie as well.
Hey guys, Jamie Neuwirth, also from the Google for Education team with James here in Mountain View, and really excited to get this rolling.
Okay, and last but not least, we've also got Kevin.
Thanks, Tim. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin Hodgins. I'm the Google for Education Texas Regional Manager. I work out of the Austin, Texas offices, and I'm honored to be with you guys today.
Awesome. So before we start, one of the things that all of this kind of stemmed from a Texas roadshow, a GAFE Texas roadshow that we started during the summer. And I was just going to reach out to some of the Google staff. I don't know whether it's Jamie or James or Kevin wants to take this one, but just why did you start that roadshow? What was the goals of that? And James, I don't know if you want to jump in.
Sure, I can jump in. So many of you may have attended the Google for Education Texas roadshows this past summer. We actually held, Jamie, was it 6 or 7 different roadshows across Texas?
7 different.
7 different roadshows across the major metros and actually over in West Texas as well. And what we had identified going into these Texas roadshows was that there were a lot of districts that had adopted Google tools. Maybe they had created Google Apps accounts, or they'd tested 50 to 150 or maybe even more Chromebooks. But there were, people running into certain hurdles around adoption, and one of those hurdles in particular was just overall the best practices around the technical side. On the Google team, we've seen that as districts adopt Google tools, they grow over time, and it's really beneficial to have a strong and sound technical setup at the beginning, or to take a step back and pause and make sure that you have that technical setup at some point before Google Apps and Classroom and Chromebooks grow at a district. And so that's why we brought in Amplified IT. They were a great partner, and actually Peter and Tim and Bill ran the afternoon portions of our Google Apps for Education Texas Roadshow, where they focused on technical best practices, and we got a lot of great feedback. So excited to see this next step and next iteration of the partnership and working with Texas schools.
Awesome. So as we kind of look at moving forward, one of the big things is we've got these collaboratives running in 6 other states and provinces around the U.S. And it's the whole concept of it is to bring together technical staff at schools and districts. So the first question, what is a GAFE Technical Collaborative? This is actually an event, and we would have regular collaborative meetups, events that we would have over the course of a school year, where we would actually be focused on GAFE, Chromebooks, and how it should all be set up. So it's focusing on best practices. But during that time when we have these events, they're one-day events that we bring together schools. It's focused on the needs of the group that's there. It's focused on what you need next and how to kind of move forward. So there are deep dives, but then there also is presentations from the Google team, whether that's people coming in from the Classroom team, Google Play for EDU as well. We've found that kind of then multiplies a school's knowledge, or allows them to share that with other school districts that are there. We also have a technical GAFE collaborative Google Plus community, which allows the schools to jump on and share best practices. Now, although we've got the GEGs running and they're fantastic, what they're focused on, and their focus is educator, content. And one of the key things a lot of school districts are not really wanting to do is maybe reach out and say, I don't know how to do this on a public forum. So that is going to be a private forum that we allow that to happen. But also people can share their lessons learned of where they're going and how they've actually achieved those. As part of those regular meetups, we also have Google updates. And so this is talking about what's new in Google, how that affects your school, and how you kind of move forward. And the last but not least, the other cornerstone of this is the increased buying power. What we do have is members of these collaboratives do get a discount based on the tools that they're looking to purchase, and these are third-party services. So let's look at these in a little bit more detail. The collaborative meetups, and this is a meetup that we host within a school. That agenda is set by the group at large, and one of the key things is we focus on different tasks and different things that people might want to look at. But what we do have there is roundtable discussions, more deep dive than we did during the education roadshows, and we go into more detail of how people should set things up and how they should kind of move things forward. And so one of the key things that we've found of this brings together the schools, brings together IT staff, and allows you to have the support that you might need as you kind of move forward. When we talk about that Google Plus community in a little bit more detail, that allows people to share their lessons learned, put up their guides of what they've created or what they've shared within their schools, or also their challenges. Throughout the collaboratives that we've already got running, people put up polls, or when a new feature comes out, what we do have is an amplified IT staff going in there, making sure that people are aware of these new features and how they should be set up for schools. The key things that we're trying to do here is bring together and build community. And it's the best way that we can support schools and also support Google in this means as well. So it's been extremely successful in Ontario and Virginia, Northern California, Iowa, and other states that we have these running. So the Google updates, again, this is to find out how certain updates will affect you, but then also how this will change your plan as you kind of move forward, whether this is new services or features. But then also we're getting Google's team to actually come on board and in these meetups to get feedback, right? Because again, if we can all pull together, we all get feedback together as a group, we're a good sounding board then for the Google EDU team or their different product managers. So as we go forward, that last collaborative-based pricing, this is mainly focused on third-party services that tie into Google Apps. This is not, a cooperative in that way. We're not all purchasing them together, but what we do have is significant discounts. Some of those services come all the way down to 50% off. And the reason being is instead of you buying it for, your 1,000 students or 5,000 students or more, what we do is we pull those purchases together and we make sure that these third-party vendors are happy to go and support these discounts being applied. So if you're a smaller district, you're going to get a huge amount of discount on these different services. And again, one of the other things that I find that's quite useful in these collaborative meetups is that we share best practices. Right? So how are we going to go and push out CloudLock, or how are we using Synergize for training and so forth, and how are these running within the school? So again, it gives that sounding board back to these different vendors as well. We also provide discounts through the collaborative for our own services, things like our GAFE audit, which is probably our flagship product, which is something that we do where we go through somebody's GAFE instance, the way they've rolled out their different settings and their use of Drive and their use of all the different other services, and we compare that against best practices. So simply on that service, as part of being in this collaborative, you are getting up to $1,000 saving on our GAFE audit. For those schools that are just starting with GAFE, right, we do have something called a GAFE Kickstart, which is where we actually go and set up and tailor the setup for GAFE for your domain. And quite a few districts in Texas after the roadshows actually went through this GAFE Kickstart process, but we are also offering a saving there. So on our services, we're offering this the saving for our discounts. So let's talk about where we are to date, right? When we sent this out, we sent this to the attendees of the roadshows. We had the GGs also put the word out there on the street. We've got 97 school districts so far and 6 education service centers. So it's great movement even in the last couple of weeks since we started this process, and I expect it to grow. But if this is our interest, we had a debate and talked internally, and we thought the best way to deal with this is because of the sheer amount of interest, we'd actually break it down into a collaborative in the north, right? And if we're thinking about meetups, they'd be based around Dallas and Fort Worth area. And then a collaborative in the south, based around Austin, Houston, and the San Antonio area. So if we look at that map, you can see the hotspots, of number of districts to kind of lower that travel distance that people have to go. And this isn't forgetting about our friends, in Lubbock, and up in Amarillo. What we need to do there as well, there's a possibility that as this kind of grows, and we've seen quite a lot of momentum there, and also down in Corpus, as we kind of grow this, there could be something in the West as well. As this grows and matures and more districts get on board, this could be something that we could have something in the West, or also something more south, including Corpus, or in that region as well. So what we will do is we will be splitting down, albeit that we'll have one large collaborative and one large community, Google Plus community for the Texas schools. What we will have is the breakouts of the meetups will be north and south, is what we're intending. So there will be, one day up in north, and then there will be the next day down in the south region as well, which should also help with attendance. If we're looking at timeline, what we want to do is keep on the momentum that we've seen. Obviously, those roadshows were in the summer, but what we would like to try and achieve is the sign-up period, by December. This is for us to kick off, because what we'd want to do is have that first meetup in late January, February timescale, and then what we would have is a follow-up meetup in April, May, probably towards the May kind of timescales as people prepare for the next school year. And then the third meetup would be in September, October timescale. So we're looking at those kind of meetups being, spread out throughout the school year. And obviously, as we talk about that agenda, we're talking about those collaborative meetups. Those agenda is based around, also what's happening at the schools during that time as well. For those that take an audit, and we go through an audit with you, that January, February, one of the first meetups is usually something that we go in and we talk about as a whole, as a collaborative. What are the best practices we've found, and also what are the issues we've found across the different districts throughout that audit. So it's a good thing to have that coming in January, February, as people prepare for the next term as well. So that is our timeline, of actually moving forward and where we are. Then if we're looking at the last piece here, which is our costs. The costs are for us to bring in, our technical staff into these collaboratives and present different content. So there is a cost. And when we started this, and all of our other collaboratives run at about the $2,500 mark. But we heard the feedback from Texas, and particularly saw the districts that were signing up were smaller districts, right? Were smaller size. So what we have done is we have provided that discount, and what we've decided to do is split this into two. That for districts that are under 5,000 students, it would be $1,500 for the year for membership, and those that are over that, would be the 2,500. There would be a difference, because for the regional technical meetups, for those smaller districts, you would have one attendee, and then obviously for the larger ones, having two. There can be, a request to have additional memberships if we wanted to talk about that a little bit further along the line. But the key thing is, what do you get for that? Obviously that's the technical meetups, the training and the guidance that we provide as part of those meetups. We have the Google Plus community, where we're sharing best practices and sharing all different resources, and having hangouts on air similar to this in some ways, but that's been more of on a private side within this community. And then we have that collaborative-based pricing. So some of the discounts, and if talking about Alberta, as a collective or a collaborative up in Alberta, they had about $250,000 of savings this year as a group when they were going through their purchasing. So albeit that we do have that cost, hopefully you won't see that as a barrier of entry for you, because again, the value of this speaks to itself, as we're seeing the kind of movement on this, but then also the discount on our own services that we're happy to offer. One of the things that we've found, and the reasons why we've done this, is we've found that this is the best kind of consultancy that we can do. Going to the step of actually bringing schools together, sharing best practices, and giving the guidance as schools kind of move forward as a whole. So the smartest person in that room is always the room. We'll have amplified IT staff there helping and communicating with you. But the key thing that we're looking at here is that we want to make sure that we're supporting you as you kind of move forward. Last but not least, of how to join the collaborative. That join link is there, bit.ly/join TGTC. So that is where, if you wanted to sign up, we're going to be sending this video out to everyone afterwards. But that bit.ly/join TGTC is how to join, or also you can drop us a line at collaborative@amplifiedit.com with any kind of questions or queries. But right now we do, because this is a Hangout on Air, I believe we do have the question and answering open for people who are posting questions. And so, Bill, do you have some questions there from people?
We do. So one of the questions that came up was, what if I join one collaborative? Am I able to switch and go to the other one because I can't make the date of one? How flexible are you?
Yeah, and I think that that's something that we're looking at and certainly supporting. So if the date didn't work for the South, or also you didn't like the school districts that are, no, I'm just kidding, the districts that are in the South, you could go to the other one, right? So I guess the key thing is that's the reason why having more collaboratives in one area would certainly help us as we kind of move forward.
So we'd encourage people, if you can, if you want to type, we have the Q&A, as Tim said, open. There's a little sort of waffle iron, 9 square, you should see up in your top right, and you should be able to join the questions if you like and see the questions that are there. Another question that we had is, does the audit have help with Chromebook settings as well?
Yep. So the audit is actually an in-depth engagement where we go through every single setting in the admin console. So it's everything from Chromebooks to also how you provision your accounts. How does that tie to either your Active Directory or your SIS? How do you use Google Classroom? What's your adoption? Even going down to the line of a deep scan of Drive over content and looking at the kind of content and how it's shared on Drive, and looking at if there's any need or if there's a problem with the kind of content that you're storing on Drive. So another question I know that I've had through these collaboratives is what are we able to do as a group? What's the benefit of us coming together as a group? And I just wanted to speak to that because this is something that we've seen, for our more mature collaboratives that have been open for more than a year or into their second or third year. So what we see with that is that schools coming together and sharing in this way obviously do help each other move along faster. But it's also the idea that we've got now in Ontario where we're actually creating use cases, or more about the line of exemplar, of actually saying, hey, this is not a case study, but this is a use case. This is how these schools are using sites. This is how these schools are actually putting in data into Google Apps, more so than just usernames and accounts, what they're doing and how they're setting up this. And taking Bill for the example of him being at Upper Grand, of using Chromebooks with special needs, and creating some good case studies around that could be shared with other people in the collaborative.
Tim, we have a few other questions coming from, we've got 3 here, one from Bryce and Wes and Chris. So will Amplified accept purchase orders?
Yes, so all of the invoices and when you do sign up, our team will get in touch with you, but those do go through purchase orders and happy to accept those. So that's easy process for us to go through.
Sure. And if you go on to the Amplified link that Tim showed you just a minute ago, you can get more information about what the process will be. And next question we had is, we're thinking about moving to Gmail from Exchange. Do you have a cost to help us with that, or a process to help them move forward?
Yeah, so we do obviously all the migrations and all the technical services in built with that. And one of the things is certainly we can do that outside of this collaborative, but as part of the collaboratives we do share lessons learned, and that's one of the subjects that we do talk about, of not focusing on how we do the migration, but also focusing on what do people do afterwards, how do they deal with this afterwards, and what are the changes, because this is what a lot of people do, is they focus on that data migration but not focused on how is this going to improve our schools as we kind of move forward. So I'm just going to mention I've got the bit.ly link. I believe that bit.ly link /Texas Collab is also live for people to get the presentation link as well. That will be sent out a little bit later. So Bill, another question.
Yes, so Wesley Cochran wants to know, we would most likely be interested in having more attendees. What's the cost if we want to have more or additional attendees? How do we do this pricing structure?
So once we're actually putting in the the interest. What we would do is, if once you're filling out that form of interest, there is an area where you can comment on that. Once we get the number of people looking to bring in additional attendees, we do have a small cost, and that's simply to cover things like lunch or other things that are part of that collaborative. So it's a minor cost for bringing extra attendees, but the key thing that just pointing out there, it really depends on how many people sign up, and the spread of this, because we're probably looking at try and have about 50 or so people in each meetup. And so what we're going to do is probably limit the space or the size, but what we will do is we'll support that as it grows. There could be a point of actually having further collaboratives and breaking down in more.
Right. I know in Ontario, for us, we have 30 school districts in our collaborative, and that's pretty much as high as we could go before we'd have to break it up, because every school board wants to bring in more than one person. So it really, we're typically, our last one a couple months ago was about 50 people, and that's pretty much as far as we could go.
Yeah, and what there's not saying, hey, we want to limit that there's only 50 people in the collaborative, but it's the meetups. We see that there's a difference when we've had these over the last 2 years. Once it does go above that size, it becomes, a little bit, I wouldn't say unmanageable, but you don't get the same kind of feel as a group, because we do have breakouts during that sessions, and Bill can speak to that a little bit, but we do have breakouts and people into different sessions, but we also do want to pull people together to have a collective discussion.
Right. So if we go back to Michael's question about Gmail, that's exactly the kind of thing that we just did a workshop on with school boards that are moving from Outlook into Gmail, for example, and what's that migration process look like. So it isn't just that we're looking for services from companies so much as what were the pain points for you as a school district as you move forward, what were the communication challenges that you have. So it's a great opportunity to talk to other districts about what their experience has been, not only just from a technical, but a communication piece and from a HR capacity piece as well. We do have one more question here from Chris Harris. He's saying, how much will the fee be for educational service centers?
So for service centers, I think that we'll have to have that discussion. And to be honest, I don't know if we've come up with that yet. But what we will do is we'll get that back to you. I think that it really depends on how many attendees you're looking to go and bring into this. Whether it's one or two. And I think that that's the easiest thing to look at from the service center perspective.
Right.
Is just what kind of number you're looking to bring in.
Right. We would actually really like to talk more with those centers. Yeah. I think there's some real possibility there. Casey Bell just wrote in optimistically saying 50 will be fast. So thank you for that. Will there be a virtual option for meetings?
Yeah, and as we expand these, the virtual option, we're trying to get people to attend as much as possible, because we do have, through the collaborative, because we've got that community, we do have the Hangout on Air, so people can start and have deep dives in between the different meetups where we can do the virtual option. We've found that there's a huge benefit of bringing people together and meeting in person, so we try and do that, and we do support, and we have done before, having somebody join by Hangout, but we feel that that's only for certain things during the day. It's not going to be every part of the collaborative meetups.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Casey. The truth is what we often do, and I'm the sort of the white knight for Ontario who goes out and sort of regionally drums up a little bit of enthusiasm for that, and it doesn't take a lot. But if it's difficult or you don't think you have a lot of people in the area, you find out pretty quickly there's lots of people with common challenges and building that up. So right now, as we're looking at, we're just starting this process. So we saw those two regional areas really respond rapidly to what we put out there. But if there's more interest in your area that there are people that would like to join, we're by all means ready to do more than 2 collaboratives. It's just at this point that's where we got the feedback from. So surely out to the west, we certainly don't have as much interest as we do for Houston at this point.
And so, around the Dallas as well, I mean, it's certainly got a lot of movement, and obviously I appreciate that because Casey's is part of that process. But Casey, one of the things I would say is as this matures, hopefully having more of them, but also it's good to bring people together. And also I'm really interested in that concept of having people cross-pollinate between different regions as well, because you do learn people, you do meet people, and it's all about building that community. So there is obviously a huge benefit of the content that's driven, but it's also the sense of community as it's kind of built up as well, and that will mature over time. So we're at the starting blocks right now.
Tim, could you go back to the guys are asking if we could go back to that bit.ly link for vendor information.
Yep. So is this the bit.ly? Is this one here?
I don't think so. I think it was
Yep.
more further down.
Yep. So is this going to be the bit.ly link for the actual sign up, which would be bit.ly/join TGTC?
Okay. Well, we'll see if that's what they want. So Wes has another question. Thank you, Wes, for and contributing so much. They're great questions. Can we have different team members attend different meetups in rotation? So
Yes.
we have 6 or 7 who would like to have be engaged in the CoLab meetings. However, not all of them can attend each meeting.
Yeah, so I mean, when we do have that agenda, we do post that agenda ahead of time, and that's focused on certain subjects that's been brought up in the community and discussions that have been led beforehand. So it's better than what we had, you know, even as a Texas meetup or the Texas roadshows that we had during the summer, where we covered a great area. We didn't have a deep dive, but if we have, you know, for example, a deep dive on security, obviously then that's the kind of person that you'd want to bring along to that meetup. If we have one on, you know, on Chromebooks and where we go with Chromebooks, and that might be a different attendee, but of course it's just somebody from the district themselves. So it's not just one person as a member, but it's the district overall, or the school.
Wonderful. That's great, Tim. I think that's it for questions at the moment, and I think we're pretty close on time here.
Yep, and I appreciate everyone joining us. I think that one of the big things I'd like to say thanks to is the Google team for helping us get this off the ground. You know, and it's been awesome, just the journey so far. But as this moves forward, you know, they're hopefully going to be part of these meetups, and I think they'll find that very valuable of actually getting FaceTime and getting to know you guys a little bit more as well as we kind of move forward. But if you've got further questions, please do feel free to reach out to us. There is that link, the bit.ly/join TGTC, but we will be sending this out to everyone afterwards with the various links. But thanks again for your time, and hopefully see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Take
guys.
care. Bye.